Hello students, in today's lecture we are going to solve some questions of the chapter Motion in a Plane, NCERT exercise 3.1 to 3.4, 3.9, 3.11 to 3.15. Here the topic uniform circular motion we will cover in tomorrow's lecture. Disclaimer: the images, text and other materials used in our presentations are for educational purposes only. We respect the intellectual property rights of the original creators and owners. If you are the owner and have any concerns or issues, please contact us at sathi@iitk.ac.in and we shall remove the content immediately. Please note that parts of the content may have been generated using generative AI, which is experimental. Learning objective: by the end of this lecture, you will able to solve exercise questions on the motion in a plane by applying concepts of maximum range, maximum height, time of flight and uniform circular motion using proper reasoning and calculations. Index: exercise motion in a plane. There are 22 questions in this exercise. We are going to cover 10 questions: 3.12, 3.4, 3.9, 3.11 to 3.15. So our first question is, state for each of the following physical quantities if it is a scalar or a vector: volume, mass, speed, acceleration, density, number of moles, velocity, angular frequency, displacement and angular velocity. So in this you have to find out the which one is a scalar physical quantity and which one is the vector physical quantity. Think about it. So solution. So here question arises, what is scalar? A scalar quantity is specified by its magnitude only. It does not have any directions associated with it. It means scalar quantity has only magnitude and only magnitude, does not have any direction. So volume, mass, speed, density, number of moles and angular frequency are some of the scalar physical quantities. These are the scalar physical quantities. Whereas a vector quantity, a physical quantity is specified by its magnitude as well as the direction associated with it. Acceleration, velocity, displacement and angular velocity belong to this category. It means these are the vector quantity. Vector quantity is a physical quantity which has both magnitude and direction. Clear? Pick out the two scalar quantities in the following list: force, angular momentum, work, current, linear momentum, electric field, average velocity, magnetic moment, and relative velocity. Think about it. So, solution using concept 3.2.1. Work and current are scalar quantities. Work done is given by dot product of force and displacement. Since the dot product of two quantities is always a scalar, so work is a scalar physical quantity. Whereas current is described by only its magnitude. Its direction is not taken into account. Hence it is a scalar quantity. Clear? Pick out the only vector quantity in the following list: temperature, pressure, impulse, time, power, total path length, energy, gravitational potential, coefficient of friction, and charge. Think about it. So in this question, you have to find out the vector quantity. So solution using concept 3.2.1 and 3.2.2. So impulse is a vector quantity. So impulse is given by the product of force and time. Since force is a vector quantity, its product with uh, time is a scalar quantity, gives a vector quantity. It means impulse is a vector quantity in the following list. State with reasons whether the following algebraic operations with scalar and vector physical quantities are meaningful. It means there is a some statements and you have to find out the which one is the meaningful statement and which one is the not meaningful. A is adding any two scalars, meaningful or not. B is adding a scalar to a vector of the same dimensions. C is multiplying any vector by any scalar. D is multiplying any two scalars, and E is adding any two vectors, and F is adding a component of a vector to the same vector. So here you have to find out the correct physical quantity which are meaningful or not meaningful. Think about it. You have a sufficient time. So solution using concept 3.1. So A is meaningful because the addition of two scalar quantities is meaningful only if they both represent the same physical quantity. For example, adding two masses 5 kg and 3 kg is equal to 8 kg. It means 5 kg are scalar quantity, 3 kg is also scalar quantity. So the result will be a scalar quantity. If we talk about the B, this is not meaningful because the addition of a vector quantity with a scalar quantity is not meaningful. For example, adding velocity 10 meter per second in east, that is a vector quantity, and time 5 second is a scalar quantity, is a meaningless because we cannot add velocity with time. Yes or no? If we talk about the C, this is meaningful. A scalar can be multiplied with a vector. For example, force is multiplied with time to give impulse. So impulse is a vector quantity. Example, impulse is equal to force into time. So here force is 10 Newton, time is 2 seconds. So the result is 20 Newton second, and that is a vector quantity. So C is meaningful. If we talk about D, meaningful because a scalar irrespective of the physical quantity it represents can be multiplied with another scalar having same or different dimensions. For example, area is equal to length into width. So here length is 5 centimeter and width 3 centimeter. So equal to 15 meter square. If we talk about E, this is meaningful because the addition of two vector quantities is meaningful only if they both represent the same physical quantity. For example, adding two forces, first 5 Newton in each direction, second 3 Newton in each direction. So the resultant is 8 Newton each direction. So we can say adding any two vectors is possible, or this is meaningful sentence. If we talk about F, F is meaningful because a component of a vector can be added to the same vector as they both have the same dimensions. For example, for a vector A is equal to 3 I cap plus 4 j cap, adding its x component 3 I cap to A vector is meaningful. So the x component of A vector is 3 I cap, this one 3 I cap. So Ax plus 3 I cap is equal to 3 plus 3, we take here common. So 3 plus 3 I cap plus 4 j cap equal to 6 I cap plus 4 j cap. So this is a meaningful sentence. A cyclist starts from the center O, look at here, center O of a circular park of radius 1 kilometer, reaches the edge P of the park, then cycles along the circumference and returns to the center along OQ. OQ. Along QA, along QO, QO, Q2O, as shown in the figure 3.20. If the round trip takes 10 minutes, what is the what is the A is net displacement, second average velocity, and third is average speed of the cyclist. So here you have to find out the net displacement, average velocity and average speed of the cyclist. Please solve this question. So solution using concept 2.1, 2.3. So here first we have to find out the net displacement. Now here question arises, what is displacement? So basically displacement is given by the minimum distance between the initial and final positions of a body. It is a minimum distance. In the given case, the cyclist comes to the starting point. It means initial and final positions are same. So after cycling for 10 minutes, he comes to the starting point. Hence the net displacement is 0, because displacement is a vector quantity. It depends on initial and final position. So in this case, according to question, the initial and final position, it means starting point and ending point both are the same after 10 minutes. So we can say the net displacement is 0. Clear? So if we talk about the average velocity, so average velocity is given by the relation, that is average velocity is equal to net displacement divided by total time. Since net displacement of the cyclist is 0, his average velocity will also be 0, because average velocity depends on the net displacement. So if we talk about the average speed of the cyclist, so average speed of the cyclist is given by the relation average speed equal to total path length divided by total time. So total path length is equal to OP plus PQ plus OQ, or we can say QO. So OP is 1 plus PQ is 1 by 4 2 pi into 1 and OQ is 1. So solving this, you will be get 2 plus 1 by 2 pi is equal to 3.70 kilometer. So time taken is 10 minutes. So when we convert time taken in hour, so it will be 10 by 60 is equal to 1 by 6 hour. So average speed is equal to total path length divided by total time. So total path length is 3.570 divided by 1 by 6. So solving this, average speed is equal to 21.42 kilometer per hour. So this is the average speed. A passenger arriving in a new town wishes to go from the station to a hotel located 10 km away on a straight road from the station. A dishonest cabman takes him along a circuitous path 23 km long and reaches the hotel in 28 minutes. What is the average speed of the taxi and the magnitude of the average velocity, and are the two equal or not? So please find A and B. Think about it. Think about it. Solution using concept 2.1, 2.3. Given total distance traveled is equal to 23 km according to question, and the time taken is 28 minutes. When we convert minute into hour, so it will be 28 by 60 hour. So this is the time taken. So average speed of the taxi is equal to total distance traveled divided by total time taken. So total distance travel is 23 km and divided by total time taken. So that is 28 by 60. So solving this term, you will be get average speed of the taxi is equal to 49.29 km per hour. Next, displacement is equal to 10 km and time taken is 28 minutes. So when we convert 28 minutes into hour, so it will be 28 by 60 hour. Magnitude of average velocity of the car is equal to displacement upon time taken. So a displacement is 10 km and time taken is 28 by 60. So magnitude of average velocity of car is equal to 21.4 km per hour. So this is the magnitude of average velocity. Now, therefore the two physical quantities, average speed that is 49.29 km per hour and average velocity 21.4 km per hour are not equal. Both are different. Clear? The ceiling of a long hall is 25-meter high. What is the maximum horizontal distance that a ball thrown with speed of 40 meter per second can go without hitting the ceiling of the hall? Think about it. So correct answer is 150.53 meter. Solution using concept 3.1.2, 3.1.3. Given speed of the ball u equal to 40 meter per second and maximum height h is equal to 25 meter according to question. In a projectile motion, the maximum height reached by a body projected at an angle theta is given by the relation, and that is h is equal to u square sine square theta divided by 2g. So this is the formula of the maximum height. So just substituting all given terms in the formula, you will be get 25 is equal to 40 square into sine square theta divided by 2 into 9.8. So it's solving this, you will be get 25 into 19.6 is equal to 1600 into sine square theta. Now we will solve this equation for the theta. So solving for theta, 490 is equal to 1600 sine square theta. So 490 divided by 1600 is equal to sine square theta. Sine square theta is equal to 0.30625. Or we can say sine theta is equal to 0.5534. Therefore, theta is equal to sine inverse 0.5534. So the value of theta at 0.5534 is equal to 33.60 degree. So this is the value of theta. So using horizontal range formula, R is equal to U square sine 2 theta divided by G. So substituting in this formula, 40 square into sine 2 into 33.60 divided by 9.8, and solving this, you will be get R equal to 1600 into sine 67.2 divided by 9.8. So further, R is equal to 1600 into 0.922 divided by 9.8. So R equal to 150.53 meter. So this is the range formula. A range, this is the answer. Clear? A cricketer can throw a ball to a maximum horizontal distance of 100 meter. The maximum horizontal distance is 100 meter. Listen carefully. How much high above the ground can the cricketer throw the same ball? So here you have to find out the height. Think about it. So correct answer is 50 meter. Solution using concept 3.1.2. Given that maximum horizontal distance R equal to 100 meter, the cricketer will only be able to throw the ball to the maximum horizontal distance when the angle of projection is 45 degree. It means theta will be 45 degree. So the horizontal range for a projection velocity v is given by the relation, and that is R is equal to U square sine 2 theta divided by G. So this is the formula to calculate the horizontal range, and this is very important formula. You need to remember this. So solving for U square by G, 100 is equal to U square by G sine 90, because theta is equal to, here we choose angle 45 degree. So U square divided by G is equal to 100. So the ball will achieve the maximum height when it is thrown vertically upward. For such motion, the final velocity v is 0. At the maximum height, the final velocity is 0. So acceleration is equal to minus g. The direction is vertically downward. Using the third equation of motion, v square minus u square equal to minus 2gh. Here, minus sign shows the motion is vertically downward. So h is equal to half u square is equal to this one. U square divided by g is equal to 1 by 2 into 100. This comes from equation first. So h is equal to 50 meter. Solving this, 2 cancel out and the remaining term is 50 meter. Clear? Try this question. A stone tied to the end of a string 80 centimeter long is whirled in a horizontal circle with a constant speed. If the stone makes 14 revolutions in 25 seconds, what is the magnitude and direction of the acceleration of the stone? So in this question, you have to find out the magnitude and direction of the acceleration of the stone. Think about it. So correct answer is 9.91 meter per second square toward the center. Solution using concept 4.19. Given length of this string L is equal to 80 centimeter, that is given. When we convert 80 centimeter into meter, so it will be 0.8 meter. Number of revolutions is equal to 14. This is given in this question. Stone makes 14 revolutions and time taken is 25 seconds. So we know the formula of the frequency, number of revolutions divided by time taken. So here number of revolutions is 14 and time taken is 25. So 14 divided by 25 hertz is the frequency. Or we know the formula of angular frequency, omega is equal to 2 pi nu. 2 pi nu. So omega is equal to 2 into pi, the value of pi 22 divided by 7 into the value of mu is 14 divided by 25. So just substitute here, you will be get the omega is equal to 88 divided by 25 radian per second. This is the angular frequency. Clear? So centripetal acceleration is equal to AC is equal to omega square r. This is the formula of the centripetal acceleration. So we know the value of omega, just substitute the value of omega, that is 88 divided by 25 and whole square into 0.8. Here 0.8 is the radius in terms of meter. So solving this, you will be get the centripetal acceleration is equal to 9.91 meter per second square. The direction of centripetal acceleration is always directed along the string toward the center at all points. Clear? The centripetal acceleration always acting towards the center. Question is, an aircraft executes a horizontal loop of radius 1.00 kilometer with a steady speed of 900 km per hour. So this is the steady speed. Compare its centripetal acceleration with acceleration due to gravity. So in this question, you have to find out the comparison between the centripetal acceleration and acceleration due to gravity. So we know centripetal acceleration, that is acted always towards the center, and acceleration due to gravity, that is small g. So compare the both term. Got it? Think about it. Think. So correct answer is 6.38 g. This is acceleration due to gravity is equal to 6.38 times g. Solution using concept 4.19. Given the radius of the loop is equal to r equal to 1 kilometer. In meter it is 1000 meter. And speed of the aircraft v is equal to 900 kilometer per hour. So when we converted kilometer per hour into meter per second, so just multiplied with 5 by 18. So this is the shortest method to convert kilometer per hour into meter per second, and that is multiplied with 5 by 18. Centripetal acceleration is equal to v square divided by r. So this is the formula of the centripetal acceleration. So just substitute the value of v, that is 250 meter per second. So 250 whole square, and the r is 1000 meter. And solving this, you will be get 62.5 meter per second square. This is the acceleration, centripetal acceleration. So acceleration due to gravity, that is 9.8 meter per second square. So here we have to find out the comparison between the acceleration due to gravity and centripetal acceleration. So we know centripetal acceleration, that is 62.5, and the acceleration due to gravity, that is 9.8 meter per second square. So just substitute the value of AC and G. You will be get AC divided by G is equal to 6.38. So AC is equal to, means centripetal acceleration is equal to 6.38 g, or we can say 6.38 times g. So this is the comparison between centripetal acceleration and acceleration due to gravity. Clear? Thank you for your attention.